I read a lot of the indictment as a lib moment for me, but it's a massive moment. It really is. I don't know how much it changes things electorally. We'll have to see that play out. But the indictment...
I kind of feel like that's beside the point, and people rush to that a little bit too much. Like,
yeah.
How is this going to play? Like, and even people that act like they're above electoral politics, something like that. Well, it's not going to... That's not the question right now. The question is like, yeah, guys close to the president were saying, hey, let's steal this thing and then use the Insurrection Act to put down riots. Yeah,
exactly. Like, we have to reckon with the moment outside of the electoral politics element, which is that this is a historic indictment. It's frustrating that it took the January 6th committee to get this going. I mean, Merrick Garland could have started this process a lot earlier, but Jack Smith, I mean, a lot of legal experts have called it a masterclass. I don't have the authority or understanding to speak to that specifically, but from my reading of it, it was very effectively laid out. What I found to be the most kind of poignant elements were the lists of the numbers of times that Trump, Giuliani, and the other co-conspirators were told that their claims were false and how they pressed forward regardless. It also appears as if not naming the co-conspirators just yet is part of a strategy to get Trump prosecuted more quickly. Because once charges are brought against the other co-conspirators, then the cases become intertwined. That could bog down the process. And so essentially, it seems like they're trying to get this in before the convention, which is in July in 2024. And another thing that experts have pointed out is that the allegations can be applied to all counts, which expedites the trial because it essentially streamlines the process. I'm not sure how much Sam went over this, but really what stuck out to me yesterday was, or on Tuesday when reading this, is like the moment where co-conspirator 4, Jeff Clark, who was terrifyingly close to being Attorney General, he would have been acting AG if there was not this internal revolt telling the deputy White House counsel that they would use the Insurrection Act, deploying troops against anti-Trump protesters in order to stay in power. That's what indicates a plan, and that's what we zeroed in on yesterday. That's a coup attempt. Okay, yeah. I mean, that was the scariest part for me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and to see people being like, well, if you actually prosecute Trump for this stuff, it might lead to riots because people don't trust the institutions. Probably the bigger threat to that is some a conspiracy to retain power and then use the Insurrection Act to put down riots they expect because they know they cheated.
Yeah, exactly. That is such pedantry, frankly. And it's just like general sneering at liberals or kind of MSNBC types who are up in arms about this or who are fawning at the historic moment. You can find that cringy and then also be clear that this is a historic moment.
I think it's cringier by far to do what Greenwald's doing than what resistance libs are doing at this point.
Well, and the other thing that stuck out too, I just want to say, is like that Trump and Giuliani were calling senators to lobby them at 6 p.m. on January 6th after the break-in and the violence and the riots were well underway at this point. Yeah, on the news, they were doing so.
Because the folks don't remember, what'd you say, 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
Yeah, we were trying to leave the show. I was like impatient to get out of here.
I mean, I had just started, right? It was like one of the craziest moments to watch it in real time. Mm-hmm. But anyway, here's Mike Pence reacting to the news here of the indictment. And for his part, at least, he comes out looking better than the other Trump people. Apparently he took many notes about his meetings with John Eastman, who's co-conspirator number 2, apparently, and Trump. I would say, though, that the fact that those meetings happened and lasted as long as they did indicates that Mike Pence wasn't like, screw off, I'm not engaging in this whatsoever. He at least had some thoughts about it, but he comes out looking
Yeah,
better, and he's going to capitalize
ultimately,
on
the
this.
calculus we all did live, which is that Trump already got his Supreme Court justices. Like, they got what they want. Why are they going to try a coup to retain that anyway?
Yeah. And I just want to say, too, Mike Pence does come out looking better from a legal perspective. He's going to top out at like 3% in the Republican primary race to bring in the electoral element. But here he is.
And irrespective of the indictment, I want the American people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution, and I always will. And I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. I've been very forthright about this issue, and I'll continue to be. Now, with regard to the substance of the indictment, I've been very clear. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. I had hoped that this issue and the judgment of the president's actions that day would be left to the American people. But now it's been brought in a criminal indictment, and I can't assess whether or not the government has the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what they assert in the indictment. And the president's entitled to a presumption of innocence.
All right, yawn, whatever.
Later he says Trump believed everything, or told him everything his itching ears wanted to, which is, I think, a biblical reference.
But I mean, he's a part of him and Bill Barr doing their little victory laps on the news, and they do deserve some like crumb of credit that they did not try actively to overturn the democratic results of an election, and Bill Barr resigned like, I guess, either early December or late November after it became clear that Sidney Powell was insane and that none of this was going anywhere. But like, they are still incredibly dangerous from an ideological perspective, and let's not give them their flowers too much, because they were more than comfortable consorting with these kinds of people until it got to a point where it was untenable for them. They were fearful of like literally going to jail or getting in Mike Pence's case, hung. There were fears for themselves that I would say were the driving factors here, not democracy. Because even Pence says it there, he was hoping that it didn't come to this, that it didn't come to some sort of prosecution. I would posit that the prosecution should have started immediately after the coup attempt happened as a way to ensure the democratic functioning of our society remains in somewhat tact. Now, thankfully, it's happening now. Jack Smith, I think, did a great job with the indictment,